Guys, let's start. Hi, sir.
Good evening.
Evening. Sir, let's start, sir. Ready po. Okay. So, sir, we're from JRU. So, we're trying to develop a prototype to help speech impaired community. And we have some few questions to justify our prototype po. So, the first question, sir, we have is uh, how long have you been an FSL or an Filipino Sign Language interpreter or interpreter po?
So, lumaki ako sa Canada. I became an ASL interpreter there, graduated in 2006, then moved to the Philippines and started learning FSL. So altogether, it's 15 years. But in the Philippines, halos 10 taon na that I've been living here.
Then another question po we have is what are the language related challenges you encounter when you're learning ASL?
Or FSL? FSL or ASL?
FSL po.
FSL. Okay. So learning sign language in terms of just the language it came pretty easy because if you have an interest and na-enjoy mo, then learning is parang mabilis. The thing that was the most challenge is the cultural components of language. So hindi lang siya the linguistics, the grammar. It's about understanding the people and who they are so that you apply it to their language, right? So yan yung sa akin pinaka-challenge because I'm still learning. Being part of the community over a decade now, still there's so many things that I'm still learning, and so like with anything, that's I think the most challenging.
Continuous learning po, ano?
Yes.
Okay. So next question po. It is possible to have grammatical error when interpreting FSL.
So without getting into the linguistics of FSL, visual language versus audio language, semantics, all that stuff. FSL has grammar, like facial grammar, but because it's on your hands, your face, and body, the way we approach it can be different ways. It's not like one way of saying hello, my name is. You only have one way. But for FSL, you have so many different ways. You can say this, you can say there's so many different ways to say things like the same concept, right? And so there is possibility of misunderstandings, but to have like grammatical errors, it depends nga. Because when you understand nga the culture who these deaf people are, their educational background, so their exposure to language from the beginning, right? Most of these deaf people were 90% of deaf people come from hearing parents. So you can imagine hindi sila marunong magsenyas, so there's no communication in the house. So understanding that paradigm helps you figure out the language better kasi hand in hand sila. So is it possible? Yes, there's the misunderstanding, but the one great thing about sign language then is ano siya? There's a lot of room for error, right? Especially if you're a deaf child and your fingers and you have like some sort of muscular sickness or something, because there's different kinds of deaf. It's not just you're deaf. There's like deaf blind, deaf with plus different other disabilities. So yeah, there's that to take into account when you're signing. Sorry, I'm just blabbing on kasi parang nakatingin lang. Wala kayong question or am I being clear?
Yes, sir. Bali, sir, regarding po doon, may follow-up po ako na question. Bali, yung expression po ng, yung katulad po na sinabi niya, yung expression and torso movement plays important role in FSL po. No?
Yeah, so the expression, facial grammar, the torso movement is what we call role shifting. So it's a feature of visual language. So instead of he said, she said, we just role shift our torso so that I'm representing, little boy looking up. Hi, ma. Hello. That kind of thing. So that's one feature of sign language.
So,
But yes, it's important.
Yes, sir, regarding naman po dun sa recent invention, if you heard yung Filipino Sign Language gloves that invented by Filipino and Camarines Sur.
Yes.
What you can say, sir, about the effectiveness to directly interpret the user intention, or did you already ano po?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I'm more curious what you guys think about it. Can I hear people speak? And I want to know what you guys think about that whole thing. I want to hear, kung posible, I hear your reaction. Like, yeah. Manuel.
Can you repeat po, sir? I'm sorry.
I want to hear what you, so you're asking me these questions, right? Okay,
Yes,
naman, I can ask you back, right?
Sige po.
So yung tanong mo sa akin is, what yung sign language gloves, right?
Yes po.
So as students, what do you guys feel about it? Since you took up an interest. Bakit?
Ayun, sir. Actually, sir, yung nakita namin yung invention nung from Camarines Sur, nakita namin siya na makakatulong siya dun sa speech impaired community para ma-easily nila na ma-express, and as well, sir, di ba, for future, parang alam niyo yun, yung parang part na siya ng buhay ng mga PIPE, tsaka yung mga nasa speech impaired community para matulungan yung everyday journey nila. For example, sa work, hindi sila ma-discriminate, and then, ayun po.
Okay. So okay. So you haven't talked to deaf people at all?
Right? Yes, sir. Hindi pa po namin na pag-communicate with other deaf or impaired people po.
Okay. So yeah, it's I'm trying to understand kasi yeah, I'm familiar with what happened with the sign language gloves, and it was like applauded by the community. But if you read the deaf comments, they were very negative towards it, right? I was, yeah, it's a good idea in terms of concept, right? And technical ability. It's a feat to do that. But actually, I put together, I have a list of different websites that you can refer to because this was already done 9 years ago, right? And same thing, the reaction of the deaf community wasn't like, it doesn't benefit them because it's sound based, right? So if you're signing and then there's sound coming out of the hands, so how does it benefit the deaf person if the hearing person can't sign back, right? So it's just one-way communication.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? So
yes,
yeah. So maybe, I don't know, just to give you that information, a lot of deaf people really didn't, and there's so many YouTube videos, you just have to Google search it on sign language gloves and reactions to it. right? Uh, if there's a techno, because I actually met with another group and they're doing a technology where it's like motion recognition. So you do the hands on the, and then it comes out on the phone. And that's an interesting thing because then you get, I know, you can get real deaf models there and be part of the, that project to include the deaf community, right? Because they really appreciate it. There were a few deaf people involved in that project, and they were very parang excited to help and students. Um, for me, bilang interpreter, one thing that I see that's needed in the community, kasi ang complaint nila is the inset in the news is too small, right? So if there was a technology to kind of enhance that inset, like have a separate monitor and have this corner transposed to here and zoomed in. Kasi I think that has a real application and deaf people will buy it, right? And now that we are on Zoom, everything's virtual. Same thing on various platforms, maliit yung interpreter. So if this technology can be, ano, thought about, kasi mahirap yung sign language gloves if you don't know sign language, if you don't know deaf culture, right? A lot of the times, we have non-verbal communication, and that's it. But how do you translate that in gloves if the non-verbal is here? So yun. I'm sorry, I feel like I burst your bubble. I want to encourage you guys kasi syempre you guys are full of ideas and creative and you can go for it. Just make sure that if it's something for the deaf, that deaf people should be part of the conceptualization, right? Yun nga, yung taga Cebu, the sign language hands group. There's so many people that applauded them, and like I said, that's a great project for a student. But if you want to think a little bit bigger, how do you really help the community? How do you build these bridges? Then we can go a little bit deeper. And I'm very flattered that you called me because I'm here to help you as well. So if you have any other questions, for sure.
Okay, sir. Katulad nun, nakita ko rin po yung mga comments nung community na in order for you to parang to learn or to help yung speech and impaired community, you must learn first yung sign language. And so, yeah. So another question, sir, we have, in what aspect of the invention do you think the future generation can further improve? Yung katulad na sinabi niyo kanina po. Yung parang hindi one way and another, yung parang kung paano i-invent yung or i-interpret nung gloves yung sign language po. Dapat katulad po ng we're planning po na i-develop is makikita nung yung speech or yung people, yung person na yun, yung ginagawa niya through monitor as well. Meron ding speaker just to verify if kung yung sign language na ginagawa niya. Kasi sir, di ba? Kung tama or mali. Ayun po.
So it's a different kind of technology.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
Okay, sir. Yung gagawin po kasi namin is parang two-way. So motion-based tsaka motion-based.
Motion-based, yeah.
Motion-based and vision-based. So yung magiging input nun is i-fuse namin. Then para mas maging ano siya, mas accurate yung magiging output.
Yeah.
Katulad po
You
sinabi
can,
niyo, sir.
you can really put in the facial, if you can somehow isolate the facial expressions as well, and the slight change in torso, then that would be, yeah, something worth looking into.
Sure. So we're planning to use po to develop yung previous one. We're planning to use image based. So kung ano yung nakikita ng upper body, yung torso, pati yung through sign language, yung
Ang
gloves,
lab.
magiging ano po siya, magiging input po no sign language or ini-interpret po ng person na yon. As well, yung image processing na gagawin niya, yung upper body is magiging input po as ano po, interpretation ng person po. So,
Yeah.
mas magiging accurate siya. Yun po.
Yeah, for sure. Just to give you a brief linguistics class, very brief. Sign language has 5 parameters. So there's hand shape, location, movement, finger orientation, hand orientation, and non-manual signals. So that's facial grammar. So these parameters are applied to every sign. So for example, the sign father, it has a hand shape, it has a position, it has a movement, it has a hand orientation and facial grammar, right? But you know, as there's like different kinds of signs out there, right? And just the mere change in the location or change in hand shape, it can change dramatically. You know what I mean? So if you're going to take out, it's not just the movement of a sign. This is sign. But another way of sign is this, 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 right? There's different ways of signing that. So just for that one word, and it's going to be hard to capture all those. I mean, it's possible, and with the help of the deaf for sure, it's more accurate. But yeah, if that's a plan, it's definitely worth it. And yeah, if you need any more consultation about how this works, I'm more than happy to help you guys out.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Ayun talaga yung, yes, sir,
Yeah.
go ahead.
If you need to connect also to the deaf community, I can also, start a group chat for you to start understanding more about their world through themselves, right? First-hand information. And if you guys want to learn some sign language, like I know this organization, Deaf Interp, they offer sign language classes as well. So it's also a good venue, really fun, kasi yung teachers mo is deaf, right? So then for a few moments, you're put in their world. So you're the minority language. No talking allowed. So you have to figure things out just it's fun. So yon, I can offer that to you as well. Is there any other questions?
For now, sir, ayun na po yung questions po namin.
Okay.
Sir, mukhang na-verify na po namin from you yung intention namin na important yung body movements and upper and torso movements.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Okay po, sir, thank you for your
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay safe po.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.